let's talk about Colombian Airlines. Hi all, I'm Ezrado and you're watching my travel channel where I talk all things Colombia. So I've come to realize that personal experiences I've had of misery and suffering translate great into entertaining content, and today I've got a real doozy for you. This misadventure comes courtesy of the travel agency mytrip.com along with the Colombian airline Viva, and it begins in the city of Bucaramanga. I'd just been there for a week, and on a bright Tuesday morning I was on my way to the airport to fly to Medellin. The flight I booked was scheduled for 8:30 AM with Viva Airlines, and I'd made sure to get there like 2 hours before departure. One thing you'll find in Colombia is that they often close check-in if you're there less than an hour before the flight's scheduled departure, even if there's no people and you have plenty of time to board and the plane's running like 5 hours late. This is something I found out the hard way in a previous misadventure, so I was well on the ball with this one and I did everything in my power to be there on time. I mean, I even had a private driver in Bucaramanga who I contacted the day before asking if they could give me a lift to the airport in the morning, so I wasn't leaving this to an Uber or taxi or anything. I was truly going all out to make sure I didn't stuff this one up. So I arrive at the airport, say goodbye to the driver, and get in the line at the check-in desk for Viva. Except there wasn't actually anyone in the queue at all. I was literally the only person standing there, and as it happened, there wasn't anyone at the desk either. So this was an immediate red flag to me, as I now knew what could happen if you don't get to the airport an hour before the flight. As you recall though, I made an effort this time to get there around 2 hours before, so I figured, hey, maybe I've arrived unfashionably early and they just haven't opened check-in yet. Still though, that felt a bit off, as there was a sign on one of the desks that recommended travelers arrive 2 hours before departure, so something seemed to be going awry. I should say too, Bucaramanga's airport is pretty small. It's not like the larger Bogota or Medellin airports where you might go to the wrong counter if you're not paying attention. From memory, it was just pretty much all of the airline counters lined up next to each other as soon as you walk in the door. With that in mind, I felt pretty certain that I'd gone to the right desk, but obviously I triple checked just in case. Anyway, I was waiting for about 20 minutes and there was no person showing up at the desk, which was beginning to get a little sus, so I asked the nearby attendant what was going on for this 8:30 flight to Medellin, and he responded with strong assertion that there was no such flight scheduled, that this 8:30 AM Viva airline flight to Medellin did not exist. This got me a little frustrated because I had confirmation of the reservation from the flight agency website that I booked through, and when I showed the attendant this, he just kind of dismissed it as if it were a fake booking or something. Now look, I've since realized that the travel agency I bought the ticket through, mytrip.com, has some pretty low review scores around the internet, but then again, so does Viva Airlines, so really either of them could be at fault here. Also, as bad as My Trip's reviews are, they still gave me this reservation code to use to check in on Viva's website, so they're clearly not selling fake tickets. Anyway, I waited a little longer and eventually another attendant passed by who I asked for a second opinion, and this person was a little more helpful, relatively speaking, as when I showed her my reservation, she confirmed that this flight did indeed exist, and it left 2 hours ago. So yeah, I guess they rescheduled this flight last minute, and wouldn't you guess I was never notified about it from anyone. Just to be sure though, I double checked my emails and my spam mail, my text, WhatsApp, and yep, no one ever told me about this flight change anywhere. Now, I know some people might say that the airline is without fault here, as it's the flight agency's responsibility to notify me about the change, but I didn't get the memo from the agency either. I wouldn't put the blame entirely on them though, as I genuinely believe that the airline could have easily contacted me about this change too. As I said before, when I made the booking, I got an email from the agency saying that I could use the reservation code they'd given me along with my email to check in online on the actual airline's website. So what this means is that Viva, the airline themselves, had both my email and reservation number stored in their system, i.e. everything they needed to notify me about the flight change. And in case there was any doubt they could do this, let me prove it to you. See, I had a previous flight a few months earlier with Viva Airlines that I also booked through a flight agency rather than directly through Viva's website, and as soon as I did that, I was inundated with marketing spam directly from Viva for months. So yes, they had my reservation code, they had my email, they previously used my email from a third-party agency to spam me for months on end, so you better believe that they'd be fully capable of emailing me about a flight change. Anyway, this is all going through my head at the time, and I'm getting pretty frustrated, so I explain it all to the airport attendant, and she says that she'll go and find an attendant who works for Viva to come and help me. So I'm waiting for 20 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. Eventually a Viva attendant shows up, and let me tell you, there was zero sympathy. In fact, it was the polar opposite to sympathy. It honestly felt like she was blaming me for the whole ordeal, so it goes without saying that she wouldn't consider a refund or any kind of compensation, as that definitely was not their problem. She pretty much just told me to call a customer support line and went on her way. So if I were to bullet point this conversation, it was pretty much, it's not our fault, there's no chance in the world you'll get any compensation from us, call customer support, goodbye. Now, to be fair, we did sort of meet in the middle somewhere and say that it was the flight agency's fault, but deep down I wasn't convinced yet. See, one thing I've learned from my time living in Colombia is that when it comes to bureaucracy or just any kind of admin, they really don't like taking responsibility for anything. It's much easier to just shift the blame onto someone else and try and make you feel like you're crazy for complaining to them in the first place. And I'm not even saying this to throw shade, I'm just saying this so you're not in for a rude awakening if you find yourself in a similar situation there. So I decided to call up the flight agency to try and sort it out, because don't get me wrong, as frustrated as I am with the airline, I'm not absolving blame from the agency either. Going by my luck at this point though, I'm sure you can guess what their response was. That's right, after waiting for half an hour to get through, we can't refund you, you'll need to ask the airline for that. The all-reliable responsibility shift strikes again. Now, I'd obviously already spoken with an airline attendant who said there was no chance in the world they'd compensate me, but I decided to call up their customer service line as well, as per her suggestion, because you know what? I had nothing to lose at this point. And finally, after this whole ordeal, I at long last was offered compensation. That's right, contrary to what the Viva attendant told me, I was offered a free ticket for any flight with Viva that matches the price of the one I just missed and expires after a year. I mean, it was better than nothing, but sadly there were no more flights that day going from Bucaramanga to Medellin with Viva, so I had to book a flight out of pocket with another airline, Latam, instead. Also, the earliest flight was at 7:30 PM, so I now had half a day to kill. For the record, I also don't know how I was supposed to access this free flight voucher. Like, I think they said they'd email it to me, but they never did. And also, so I just wanted to add to this that since recording this video, a Colombian friend has actually informed me that Viva Airlines have now not only filed for bankruptcy, but are also refusing to refund anyone the price of the ticket that they bought before all of this happened. So in the case of my friend, that means that she bought a ticket to go see her family with Viva Airlines before all of this happened, and now not only can she not use that ticket, but they're also denying her a refund. So yeah, you know, if there was any thought that maybe I'm just some first world entitled Australian complaining about this kind of thing, the fact of the matter is that Viva Airlines are clearly no strangers to this kind of malpractice. It's now happening to a lot of people in Colombia now that they've filed for bankruptcy, so yeah, really sad to see, but just something I wanted to add to the case. Back to the video. I should also say that in offering compensation, I'm pretty sure they admitted to rescheduling the flight without telling me, but I don't know for certain, as like I said before, people in bureaucracy and admin don't often like to take responsibility for things in Colombia, so I don't believe they actually told me. If the flight was indeed always intended to leave at 7:30 AM though, well, the blame would obviously then fall on the flight agency for giving me the wrong departure time from the get-go. And if that's the case, I'm sorry to Viva Airlines for throwing you under the bus for this entire video and for being a Karen towards your airport attendants. Still, can't say for certain whether it really was an error on the flight attendant's part or if there was an actual rescheduling, so I'm afraid I have to leave this one open-ended. Either way though, moral of story, check your flight status on the airline's website the night before instead of relying on them or your travel agency notifying you. And also try to avoid the travel agency mytrip.com, as whatever way you spin it, they either gave me the wrong departure time or neglected to tell me if it had changed. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I don't know if that was entertaining, but hey, at least there was a little takeaway for you at the end there. If you did enjoy hearing about my suffering though, I actually have another nightmare flight story for you another time, in which the airline was indisputably to blame, so I might get to that eventually. As always though, like, sub, bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!